we're streaming live.
I'd like to do the acknowledgement. City of Prospect acknowledges that we are in the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region, and we pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relations with the land, and we acknowledge that they are the continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. And now for the Council Pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Thank you. So item number 2, on leave, we have nil. Item number 3, apologies, we have Mayor Malawi. Item 4, do we have any indication of intention to declare a conflict of interest tonight? Yep, Councillor Tolman.
Do I say which?
Yep.
10.4.
10.4. Next, we have confirmation of the minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 25th of February 2025 be confirmed. I have a mover? Councillor Barnett, would you like to speak to it?
No.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mark-Brew. And all those in favour? Carried unanimously. So item number 6, public question time. Do we have any questions? 7 petitions, we do not have any. And 8 deputations. We have Mr. Clinton Devenish of the Broadview Tennis Club. Invite you to come and speak. If you just state your name and address, street and suburb.
Clinton Devenish, number 2 Emily Street, Nailsworth. Long time City of Prospect resident.
You have a presentation screen, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, CEO, elected members and administration here tonight. I'm representing the Broadview Tennis Club tonight. I've also got Martin, Amelia and Jess from Tennis SA here as well in attendance. Memorial Drive, Playford, Golden Grove, Tea Tree Gully, Green Acres, Athelston, East Torrens, Kensington Gardens, Glenlee, Peak Gardens, Happy Valley and Seacliff. Thanks, Gwen. These are the 11 tennis precincts that we know of that have had significant upgrades or redevelopments in the time that the City of Prospect has been deliberating over the Broadview Tennis Precinct. This is based on our committee agendas that date back to 2012, so about 13 years. The primary strategy that will be presented to Council tonight by the administration talks about option 1. Option 1 is the recommendation of seeking $9.2 million of federal government funding whilst Council contributes $0.5 million. Just a 5% contribution from Council will not attract any interest from federal government, let alone state government. The funding precedent is set and understood to attract joint funding, and the Council has adopted these types of approaches before The Broadview Football Club council contribution was 72% of funding, and Prospect Tennis Club recently was 58% of the funding. 5% contribution, in our opinion, is a waste of time. It indicates council are not invested in this community project. $10 million is quoted in the reports as being the capex, or the capital cost. This is an overinflated cost, as it includes the bowling club car park upgrade that is not critical to the tennis precinct upgrade. And you'll find in your packs on page 51 that the actual project estimate currently is $7.643 million. Then if option 1 fails in the report, which is highly likely, council are then encouraged to invest $1.7 million of council-derived funds into a partial completion of some courts to be upgraded and no community facility. Funding across multiple financial year budgets and still reliant on $500,000 of federal or state government grant funding. This option is not actually able to be constructed and would render the club inoperable for a period of time. More courts would enable community use, but then with more community use, we have no facility to house them. This has been relayed to the administration and is not a viable or preferred option. Are half-finished courts and no commitment to a community facility upgrade really what council want to provide for the community in the lead up to a council election? Lastly, the alternative option, which to me is very unclear, is to support the missing $8.3 million, which again is questionable, funding this via a $4.15 million contribution from council across 3 financial years, effectively pushing the project beyond 2030 for delivery and still reliant on $4.15 million of other funding contributions. This option is developed in stark contrast to the advice we received in a meeting with Mr Steve Georgianis, MP Parliament of Australia, who with local member for Enfield, Andrew Michaels, suggested a 3-way equal funding agreement between federal, state and local, in their experience, as the best option. This is the funding option that we request is advocated for and obtained on behalf of the community of Broadview. We are the agents that provide immense community benefit at the tennis precinct, but we need council support to fund the vision and the expectations of our community. I've been a bit negative, first few slides. There are some positives. So the head lease for the precinct is resolved and the Broadview Tennis Club are able and financially viable to support the redevelopment project, and the head lease has been a fantastic achievement for the club and we appreciate council's support on that. Female and underrepresented groups continue to thrive at Broadview Tennis Club. We have the highest female participation rates in tennis for South Australia in competitions. We have further chance to grow with more courts. Last weekend, 6 of our junior teams won premierships for the City of Prospect, more than any other club in the Northeastern District competition. Court designs are complete and shovel ready. The community facility building design is finally agreed and looking great. And we have agreement through Tennis Australia standards for a Tier 2 light venue, which was Council's request at one of the last workshops and meetings, was to explore that. We've achieved that, and we were the only facility within 30 kilometres of Memorial Drive to achieve that standard. So finally, our ask of Council tonight is please contribute at least 1/3 of the funding and advocate for the remaining federal and state funding on behalf of the community. Ignore the noise about competing projects. There is a chance right now to deliver a flagship facility that Council can stand by for future communities. Our ask is to act now. There are federal, state and local government elections coming up and the chance to make the right decisions on behalf of the community. Do not kick this important and heavily supported community project down the road again. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I'm Councillor Barnett. Thank you for your presentation, Clinton. Talking about the federal and state government representatives that you've got a green light from, I would say. Yes, so is there any more than that? Just, yes, I'm just wondering how can we firm up anything there?
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor. I would have to refer that question to the administration Deputy Mayor because they've been in leading those conversations with federal and state government. So we have been involved in some meetings, but not all conversations. So I'm not quite sure where those are up to.
We might wait until the audio.
Thank you. I've got two questions. I think one's an easy one and one maybe not so easy. The first one, I won't tell you much as much. The first one relates to, from a club perspective, is it better to wait another 2 years and do nothing and do the whole lot at once? Or is it better for the club to get it drip fed, the courts now? I know you're not keen on the courts now, the club later, but if we get the money in 2 years' time, is that a more preferred option? I know what your preferred option is, but is the second option maybe?
In answer to your question, Councillor Group, the preference is for the whole solution. I think we've deliberated over this extensively. As attractive as it would be to deliver courts first, our absolute immediate need is more playing surfaces. We just cannot support the community desire to play tennis. And we have an ability to upgrade the facility to a Tier 2 facility which has a certain number of ITF side courts. As attractive as it is, we can't actually build those courts without demolishing all of the current buildings on the site. So it just has to be a combined project delivery. There's no other way to do it. Administration have tried to put forward an option where either, I think it was 8 courts are built and left next to the existing courts. We've looked at those plans and looked at the levels. I am a civil engineer by trade, and the level difference between the new courts and the existing courts is not feasible. It would create retaining wall requirements between courts. We wouldn't achieve the spacings. We'd actually have courts that would be inoperable during that period of time, as well as other lighting and fencing and gating and access requirements that couldn't be met. So as attractive as it is, our preference is to go for the whole upgrade development. Yeah.
Second question is the club able or willing to go into debt for any of this project? That's a tricky question.
That is a tricky question. Although I am the president, I'm not at liberty to make commitments on behalf of the committee without testing those commitments. However, we have explored some of those opportunities already. We have certainly had that offer from Tennis Australia to go into a loan scenario with Tennis Australia on a pretty favourable payback option. So it is an option that we can explore if the need arises.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks.
So, item number 9, questions without notice. Do we have questions without notice? Move on to item number 10, reports for decision. Got 10 for a tennis precinct upgrade. The recommendation is on page 3 and 4. Do I have someone to read?
Before we move that, I just suggest we go into suspend meeting procedures and discuss it.
Just show of hands to go into. We'll add 15 minutes. Discussion.
I'm happy to start if you like. I understand from a question I asked in the last meeting of the budgets that option 1 for this being the federal funding, election federal funding, we've missed that anyway. Am I incorrect or correct in that statement?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I think that's a pretty fair statement. I mean, look, we haven't been told no, but I would have expected a yes by now if it was going to happen. So members can take away from that what they will. I think the Clinton is correct. There's pretty low probability.
I think the next couple of questions is similar to what Councillor Groot asked, is what's the condition of the current club? Hasn't been condemned yet. What's the playing conditions? And I think we've had a pretty good example from what Clinton's saying about whether we drip feed or whether we do a whole thing. And obviously the club's preference is to do the whole thing at once, which tells us obviously at the moment with our finances we can't afford to do it tomorrow. So I think there's a certain, I'll leave it open for others, but I think there's certainly something there that I get from the presentation that the club's not really happy with any delays or any more deferrals, but I think with our competing priorities at the moment to try and find $8.7 million, I think is going to be a real challenge. So I think from my side it's going to have to be a delay, but I'll leave it open for other members.
Probably normally ask this in debate, but since we've got this opportunity, I'd just be interested in that comment about conversations with state and federal government, from administration point of view, where that's at, and what has been potentially committed or not committed. And I have a second question after that as well.
So, through you, Deputy Mayor, there have been a range of conversations. The conversation that Mr Devenish refers to, I was not present at that meeting. Mr Delena was, so I'll ask him to take that one. But then before we swing back, I might reference some comments that have been made to the Mayor and I in subsequent meetings. Mr Delena?
Yeah, through the Chair. Certainly been advocating very hard since this proposition came to be. We've met with a number of different federal government, the two major parties. So certainly Steve Georgianos, we reached out to him. Steve suggested we actually meet on site, and he brought Andrea Michaels to the meeting, seeking to try and facilitate particularly what would have been a tripartite arrangement. I wouldn't say Andrea was warm to the idea. She certainly was suggesting that tennis would have to pony up some further money, but nevertheless, it was effectively Steve's way of trying to sort of spread the load amongst the three parties. So that was certainly presented. We haven't put it in the council report specifically as an option because invariably in these projects, that's very rare. You'd get three forms of government contributing. Now, if we have, and I'll say that in the sense of this type of project, with our drainage projects, we've got three forms of government on a third arrangement. And that's deliberately because the state government, through their Stormwater Management Authority, aligns their program to occur immediately before the National Disaster Mitigation Fund to bring on. Deliberately so it allows for councils to seek for this third outcome. We don't have that in any program that I'm certainly aware of in this space. And you look at councils that have delivered major infrastructure recently, whether it's the Barossa precinct, 50% state, 40% state, probably 60% government, the Paine and Bull, $5 million in terms of state government funding, and the rest was council. It's very hard to get money out of the feds for these sorts of projects. Hence why I haven't put it in there. It is an option, and certainly why wouldn't we try and do that in this, explore that endeavour? But it's not something that I certainly understand, and we through fact and data is an option that is likely to come to fruition.
Before I pause the answer there, further comments and input that we've received, and to be clear, the Mayor and I have met with members Hood and Georgianos, Ministers Michaels, Farrell, Hildyard, Amy Grantham, and Shadow Minister Passon. So there's been a lot of discussion that's been raised in a range of forums. All have been pitched the dream. The Tier 2 facility, the value that it will bring to not only the City of Prospect, but the region, the state, the sport of tennis, the opportunity for professional tournaments, the acknowledgement that the City of Prospect may need to fund some of those tournaments, the operating costs that brings, but also the opportunity that brings economically, sporting, from a community standpoint. We're behind it. The challenge is the size of the ask is significant, and the fact that we, and I think again it's fair to say, can't contribute a significant amount to that project is a challenge, and that's why I have my doubts as to whether or not we'll get it through this federal arrangement. That's not to say that it can't happen or it won't ever happen, but it is unlikely in this round of federal funding. The primary strategy outlined in the report anticipates that if we fail, as frankly is looking likely we will in this federal election round of funding, then that we would pitch it to next year's state election, but also that we'll continue to pitch it in the various meetings and opportunities we have as we go forward. Members, it is possible that at some point we'll get a bite, and that bite might not be 100%. It may be, well, can you come up with half, or can you come up with a third? I think at that point, it will be open to us to bring it back to you and have a chat about whether that can be accommodated. Members, it is fair to say, though, based upon even the recent assessments we've had with you on the long-term financial plan, that even that would be a stretch in the short term, given our commitments to PLP and given the challenge we have in finding new capital from our current budget that goes beyond that projected in our long-term financial plan. So there would need to be pain, and that's what option 2 anticipates, a reduction in, frankly, renewal spending, which is also hard to swallow. So I think that a third option sounds great if we can come up with a third. And the question would be when that can happen and how can we do it without impacting renewal. And I think there are some questions there that frankly are challenging for us, and certainly in the short term would be difficult without some form of rate-based funding to support that. I think that's the fundamental challenge.
Sorry, can I just have my other 2 quick questions? Second question is, the Deputy mentioned the true cost is not 10 million. Can I just get a fact check on that one? What is the true cost of the project?
Mr. Delano?
Through the Chair, I can assure members the true cost of this project is $9.91 million, effectively up to $10 million for the analysis report. That's QS has undertaken that. There was a difference between the number that presented in the workshop back in November and what's presented now, and that difference is largely the result of a little bit of design evolution with respect to the Tier 2 arrangements, some additional rooms associated with that, but largely associated with design contingency for scope growth, as with there's always scope growth between what is a 5% design to a final design, some costs for escalation. We've got now 2 years escalation of $500,000 a year for this sort of project of 5% over the course of each year, as well as some other costs associated with project management and other preliminaries, transformers, staging of works, asbestos, sewer drainage upgrades, some solar. So there's been some growth that's effectively significant because it's probably 25%. But what was presented in that November report was really for sense of scale. Based on it was a cost estimate from the same cost consultant, but it was effectively for the purpose of comparing 1-story to 2-story, and that's cost is relative, and that was about a $1.2 million difference in those single-story to 2-story. That's still relative to this point, but there's some other costs as we've gone through with some more time and some further cost refinement to make sure that we're in a position that we're putting a cost as accurate as we possibly can to the council for a decision. And that's ultimately what council supported to go in the advocacy document that effectively a significant body of work that we did towards the end of last year to effectively sell the merits associated with this project.
I just add one more thing to that, and that is the car park, which I think is a sticking point for the club. Members, I think it's difficult for the club to reconcile the fact that we're asking members to consider this as part of a broader master plan inspired precinct upgrade. It's not just a tennis club. For us, this is part of delivering on a master plan vision. The micro-based aspect of, well, we don't want to be wedded to that as part of our upgrade is really a matter for council to consider. And I think the scope of that particular portion of the project, Sam, is...
broadly around $500,000. It's just a ballpark figure for now, based on some back-of-the-envelope calculations we've done at administrative level. We're in the process of getting that designed up to a degree. We don't have just to get that to a concept level. It's not within the construct of the current $10 million. That's referenced in the report. It's not within the construct of the $10 million. It certainly hasn't been allowed for in the QS report. But we do say that we're going to do some further design development and then seek to incorporate that moving forward. Now, whether that's through this project or some other funding, effectively another form of new funding, it's something that's within the master plan. It would seem sensible that between a substantial undertaking, civil undertaking in exactly or adjoining that location, that we provide additional car parking as part of this project.
Last one, very briefly. Sorry, Councillor. My last one is there any sense in allowing this delay on the table, given that we are at maximum 2 weeks away from an election being called? That's when a lot of these conversations will happen. I'm hearing there's a possibility of potential loans. I'm hearing that Tennis SA or Tennis Australia need to probably add a little bit more value to the project. Would it make sense just to ask administration to go away for another month and go through that election process, have those further conversations, come back to us in whatever the next month is, April? I'm just posing that as a thought, maybe rather than anything else, because if no one moved it, then it would lay on the table automatically. But anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Only that's a rhetorical question for council.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And a member could also, of course, move a formal motion to that effect if you choose to. So, out of the council.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and acknowledging that $8.3 million is ratepayer money for all of us in the city of Prospect. And I'm just getting a flavour of, is there generally more support for these kind of complexes if they are multi-use facilities as opposed to single sporting facilities? Is that where some facilities are getting support and others not? Maybe through to the director.
Mr. Glenner.
Through the chair, certainly the more we can to the higher the likelihood. That's effective. We do have the tennis club and Lions Club co-located in this facility. We haven't mentioned that, but that's part of this project to co-locate the Lions Club because the footprint consumes the existing facility at the Lions Club, and they've been brought along to the journey with respect to conversations we've had. So at the very least, there is that too. There is that community use component that we need to work on. It's reflected in one of the early motions of council that reflects community use, and that is something that will be expressed. But to your point, specifically, more parties we can get, certainly the better. But there is the challenge in terms of how you integrate that within the existing community, which is quite a strong club with high membership and demand for those sports and for their facility.
Yeah, yes, we've got some moving parts. So, because I was going to raise about if the Lions Club, because that's quite a significant little component there. Have they been approached perhaps to do a bit of fundraising for that? Or I'm not quite sure what the arrangement is. So that's my first part. Question.
Mrs. Glenner, are you aware of whether the Lions Club are willing or able to contribute some money to this project?
Yeah, specifically ask them, but to what degree they'd be able to effectively furnish a reasonable, significant amount of money to make a difference in the conversation is probably the question what we need to come back to. But we haven't asked them specifically what level of contribution they could make to this project.
Yes. Because I'm just thinking, like adding, such a well-known and respected community group to the mix of what we're asking our politicians and what other forms of grants are available. And then that brings me to the bowling club and for their car park. It was council's property, but have the bowling club been able to ascertain, or council officers been able to ascertain, if the bowling club is eligible for any grants to help with that component? Because I'm looking at bringing all the parts together and seeing what we can get.
We just need to extend the meeting procedure. We agree to extend.
Yep, yeah, I agree.
10 minutes.
Another 10 minutes.
Yeah. Right, so
Show of hands.
yeah.
So is that a question for?
Yes, through the chair, perhaps to CEO.
Mrs. Glenner.
Through the chair, certainly sat down with the bowling club and spoke to them in regards to this proposition of bringing online the car park. It's within the approved master plan. It's within an area that they have previously told us was surplus to their needs and was actually costing them money because they were irrigating these areas and having to maintain them. So it was it was positive in the sense that it's certainly supported to bring that on, but there is some design requirements that we would need to build in. In terms of funding streams that they were able to identify, no, there wasn't any identified. I know they've got their own. It's not one of their strategic goals in terms of where they want to put their money. They've certainly got some plans and strategic planning that they've done on their site, and one of their, I suppose, next deliverables is effectively shade and artificial turf. So that's where they'd like to see they'd be investing any money, spare money that they had, into their own facility rather than the car park itself.
I was going to just on the subject of having spoken to the ministers, you know, with the federal election, I know the Grantham, I know she's promised is it 5 million to I don't know if you read that.
I think it's 5 million, might be half of that.
400,000.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yes, I got it wrong. But so that's has Lucy Hood come up with anything? So there's still yet to sort of come up with amounts, isn't there? I mean, there's been a discussion that didn't sound hopeful, but there are funds that I imagine are still going to be allocated to projects. You would think. I mean, you would get a match. I'm sure Lucy Hood would try to match Grantham. And
I'll take that as a question.
well,
Look, I can't
is.
speak for the various politicians, remembering that this is a contest between Steve Georgianis at the federal level and Amy Grantham.
Oh, it
the
is
Liberal
too.
candidate.
Yes, sorry.
And the
Yes,
discussions
so
with
with Steve,
have led
Steve, I meant
to
to
further
say.
discussions with Minister Farrell, who's managing campaign promises of significance beyond a certain level, which this definitely breaches that threshold, which is why I've been off to see Minister Farrell and sought his support. They require cabinet support. My understanding is there was a process that either was to or has happened. I don't know whether it has or not, but Mr. Farrell outlined a process to us that involves a series of competing opportunities, and ours was one of them, presented to a broader cohort of party decision makers to determine which ones would get funding, and that there was some limit to that, and that they would lead to potentially promises being made in electorates of scope. Now, noting that there has been a range of pretty substantial commitments already made by both federal Labor and Liberal candidates in a range of, interestingly, fairly borderline swing seats, of which the City of Adelaide is not one. That is why I've honestly, members, I'm not going to lead you up a garden path here. It's not
you're
looking
right.
good.
No.
Now, it's not to say it won't happen, and it's not to say that we haven't given it a good, fair crack of the whip. NAFC have done well to get funding out of Liberal Party for upgrades to the women's change rooms there. We have not been able to, at least so far, secure that funding. It is true, again, that these things can and do change in time, but right now that federal election funding does not look like it.
Okay. I just wondered whether there was a possibility that they're yet to come back.
There's always a possibility,
But
but that
it's
possibility
it's
is
fairly low.
relatively, if you're asking my professional
Yeah.
opinion, different people may have different views, and that's fair enough too.
Sorry, just to your comment earlier, CEO, if somebody wants to move a motion to lay it on the table, when might be the appropriate time to do that?
So through the Deputy Mayor, it could be done immediately upon returning to formal procedures. That a motion to that effect could be moved. I believe it requires a seconder, and then it's a vote that doesn't, there's no debate on the issue.
Okay. Right, I foreshadow that I'll be doing that.
Just following up on the comment regarding the third contribution from state, federal and local, that would that chance of securing the funds be higher than what we're proposing, the 5% that we are contributing, that we are wanting to contribute? I'm just thinking, would that be a better proposal to put forward? I suppose that's a question. That's a question. Would that be a better proposal to put forward than what we are proposing? You know, of that 5%, and so the likelihood of federal government not accepting that.
So through you, Deputy Mayor, yes, I think it's fairly self-evidently obvious, members, that if we're prepared to put in more money, that's going to give us a better opportunity to. Mr. Devonish is right about that. If you come forward and put more skin in the game, the chances of you securing additional skin in the game from other layers of government is increased. It's not to say it's increased to, you know, a certainty, but certainly it's going to improve your opportunities. And even, you know, I mean, members, you're all accustomed to the sorts of shared funding options that we've put on the table in the past with things like, for example, the Prospect Bonds. Yeah, that was looking at a 50% contribution from council and a cohort of co-funders toward a project that we were seeking some shared funding with. Now, that ultimately didn't go ahead, but that was received well, frankly, by those people we were pitching it to in more senior levels of government. In a situation like this, a third is more likely than putting in $500,000 into a $10 million project. Absolutely, yes. However, it still creates some serious challenges there, because not only do we have to find one layer of government that's willing to chuck in, let's say, $3 or $4 million, but we've got to find two, and we've got to have them working together. And that's hard enough when governments are aligned at state and federal level. You don't know what will happen after the election. It may or may not be the case. But you never know. The more you put in, the more chance you've got of securing co-funding, but it doesn't make it certain. The challenge there, of course, is coming up with that money.
Discussion. So we'll move back into session.
Deputy Mayor, I would like to foreshadow a motion which will come up on the screen, maybe possibly in a second. I'm happy to read it out. It does. Just find it again. I move that item 10.7 lay on the table for a period of 1 month to allow staff an opportunity to further lobby federal and state governments, along with Tennis Australia and the Broadview Tennis Club, with a view to obtaining further financial support for the project.
I'll second.
Would you like to speak to it?
No, I haven't.
Is there any further discussion?
So it's strictly a formal motion, but if you're presenting as a formal motion, then no, there's no debate. It's straight.
Sure. So all those in favour? Item 10.2, Galway Avenue Roundabout Project. Page 73, recommendation is on page 73. So this one here would need someone to choose option 1 or 2. Would anyone like to move?
I'm happy to move option 1.
Option 1.
Yeah, I think it's important that we get this up and running, and if we can do that, option 1 means that we can get it up and running. Probably got a better chance of doing it because it's less cost. I don't think we need all the bells and whistles on this one. I think we just need to get it happening. We can always do landscaping and things as a matter of just general maintenance later on. I think it's the sensible way to go. It gives us the roundabout, gives the thing we need, which is the safety of the roundabout without all the bells and whistles. I encourage you to endorse this motion.
I'll second it, yes, for the sake of discussion.
you like to speak to that?
That's it.
Do we have any further discussion? Councillor Tobacco?
Yeah, look, this one's been a long time coming, and you sort of see the dollar figures evolve over the years. I guess when projects like this come to us, again, if we go back to the service level discussion about what we expect from a roundabout, so if you have a look at option 1, we still have landscaping irrigation, we still have public art, we have a $75,000 contingency and lighting, and we also have, it looks like curbing extension into the, from the picture we got sent. I'm just wondering, like, I'm sure there's A and B and C and D and E grade roundabouts. I'm sure if you go out to an industrial estate and you've got to put a roundabout in, what does that look like and how much does it cost? And I guess, how are we choosing the service level of roundabouts? So it's a question that's a bit ambiguous, I know. But if you were to do a compliant roundabout, is the starting cost $1 million, or is this just the way we choose to do things in the city of Prospect? So, Ronnie, through.
Mr. Delena, maybe you can take this. We note, though, members, that Galway Avenue is a collector road for the city of Prospect and also part of various cycle routes and other things. This is not a budget roundabout, nor can it be. Mr. Delena, maybe you can go into detail.
CEO, I think just to expand on that further, the cost of the Howard Rosetta roundabout, that was like a mini version of this Galway roundabout, probably close to 50% of the scale. Galway is going to be a significantly sized roundabout. It was $450,000. So, and that was, yes, and that did have some detailed landscaping that was presented, but the bare basic cost of this roundabout is $1.28 million. Bare basic cost, with effectively a modest allocation of $50,000 to be able to landscape the centre of the roundabout, so it's not rubble, and that effectively does resemble similar treatments to the other roundabouts on Galway Avenue. Effectively some sort of soft landscaping and providing for a future public art opportunity. Now, there isn't a lot of saving that we can do just because of the size of the space that we need to place the roundabout. It's a bus route. The cost is the cost. So that's been based on the design that we've done, and that's been costed to a high level of maturity.
No, it's really good, and it's not a silly question, because we have to justify the budget to the people watching at home about how much roundabouts cost, and it's not something people put in their shopping basket. And so when we go to draft budget, we have to defend rate increases, and it's really hard to know what things cost. And certainly, you know, you might say, oh, well, $75,000 contingency here and extra $200,000 landscaping there. It all adds up, because if we don't spend the money there, we can do things in another location. So I'm just mindful of when we're spending money, every little bit matters this budget, and I think the cost of living pressures people are facing. So I'm certainly keen to endorse the lesser option, and I would go further across a lot of other projects and just say, look, you know, if we're looking at infrastructure projects, there's nice to haves and there's need to haves, and I'm certainly in the camp of need to have at the moment. So.
Actually, we've,
Summer?
I just want to note that there is some changes. There was it's now been noted that it was from what's it named? Support has been changed to early so it's on 4, 5, 6. So we'll go back to Councillor Stanley to sum.
I think Councillor De Backer made some very good points. It is the simplified version, but it's still a pretty significant piece of infrastructure. It is something that's needed there. It aligns the intersections along Galway Avenue so that we've got roundabout, roundabout, roundabout. It makes it conform. It makes it safer due to the oblique nature of the intersection off of Reims, which, as anybody who's ever taught anyone to drive, that is one of the probably more challenging intersections, especially if you've got modern cars with thick pillars. You look around and you really can't see anything. it's an obvious piece of infrastructure that needs to be there. It has got absolutely huge support with everyone over in the east. It's one of those things that we all look at and go, why wasn't that done earlier? Why was it missed out? Very happy to endorse the simplified version. It's not simple at all. It's a lovely piece of work and it looks like it's going to be a great roundabout that'll do its job. I commend the motion to you.
So we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 10.3, the Integrated Transport Plan Phase 2 consultation. Recommendations on page 90. So, I'd like to pass it to the CEO to get an introduction from the Director.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Members, I thought it important to ask the Deputy Mayor to offer you an introduction to this report, which is not a normal process, but we only had a workshop on this last week, so in 7 days there has been work undertaken to capture your feedback and the feedback you've presented as part of that workshop from the community, to incorporate that into a revised integrated transport plan. Not significant changes, members, but they are worth noting, and for that reason I've asked the Director to offer an introduction to you, outlining what those changes are so that you know what you're voting on. Mr. Delaney.
Thank you, CEO. I stole my thunder, but just in respect to the decisions before you, obviously the key consideration is to effectively seek to support the ITP that's been presented as a strategic framework, including actions as presented for consultation, but also the consultation approach that we're seeking to take. So, as Chris said, we had that workshop with members last week, and as a result of that, we've altered 8 actions and added another one, and that's referenced on page 102 and 103 of the agenda. I don't want to go through all of those at this point, but effectively there has been some meaningful change that's been made as a result of the feedback we've received. And hopefully that takes on board the key points of reference from the elected members. In respect to the consultation, certainly some really good, gave us the feedback we got, gave us opportunity to reconsider things, and the preferred approach that we're recommending in the report is effectively what we call a hybrid option of what we present to the workshop. The workshop, we were running down effectively a pivoting to from a 2-phase process to a 3-phase process. What we've recommended in the report is to go out on the basis of a 2-phase approach, and subject to the feedback coming back, we have a workshop elected members, and that we can decide whether we actually wrap up the ITP at that point, and effectively just advise of the result, or there was, depending on the nature of the feedback received, whether we think collectively we should be going back out to the community. So it leaves that option open to the nature of the feedback we received. Have we hit the mark with the document, basically? So that's really the key points of decision that staff are seeking. Obviously up to members to whatever else they want to throw or consider at this point, but and that's what the motion reflects.
Oh, I'm happy to move to
Would you like to speak to?
Yeah, look, I want to kind of set the scene that this is going out for public consultation, so I could spend probably my 5 minutes plus another 5 debating the merits or otherwise of different bits of it, but I'm not going to, because I think this is a great opportunity for us to take it out to the community. I was just reflecting though, my boys turned 14 on Sunday, which was only 3 days ago. I think they were 9 when I first put this motion up. So I'm really excited to see it getting to the point where we actually got some rubber on the road. I'm probably a bit agnostic about the consultation discussion you just had, Director. We'll sort that out later, but I'm not quite sure where I sit with that. But I think let's get it out there, let's get some views, and not dissimilar to other things we're consulting on at the moment, we'll get lots of views, and some of those will challenge us and some of those will be quite straightforward and simple. But I just look forward to it getting out there and we can start talking to our community about traffic, which is not just about parking, it's not just about cars, it's about dogs, it's about walking, it's about cycling, it's about parking. So I look forward to it.
Do we have a second?
So just to echo Councillor Britt's sentiments, and look, I think that workshop was really important the other day. It was great to see Action P6 investigate additional compliance monitoring of high demand parking areas, looking at the serviceability, not just the infrastructure and some of the planning. So I think, servicing this as well and just getting it out there. But let's just get it out there, because the sooner we get it out there, get the feedback, we can start doing the actions. And I think that's where, instead of having 3 phases, I think having phase 2 and maybe having some more in-depth consultation when we're looking at particular areas, you know, when there are high connections or value places. And I think the consultant with their, you know, value on place, and I think, you know, people want to get between key places. And yes, we choose our own way, but certainly I think I've heard from a lot of people the focus on quality footpaths, quality lighting, and I think, you know, it's about time we actually look at a sort of service level in some areas, because we've got Renewal SA going down Prospect Corner, but we want to get people there up to the main street. We want them walking, we don't want them bringing their cars. So if we have a desirable, interesting placemaking approach to connecting places, I think that's a really strong way of doing it. Now, I haven't seen if wayfinding and placemaking have been captured. I think it's really good to leave it in there, because you know what? It's another grant opportunity. If it's a buzzword we can apply for money, let's do it, because it'll help us. So I'd really like to see those things contained. And I think, you know, we've got to think broadly, just about cars. It's about connecting people, and how we do that is really a creative process. And I'm really looking forward to the rubber hitting the road, I think, as Councillor Groot said. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Just slowly.
Or the foot. It could be your trainers.
That's right.
You know? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to be the big Grinch here. I'm so sorry. I won't be endorsing this process out for consultation for a few reasons. I think there's a few things missing. I don't think we ever landed the east-west connectivity in a way of getting the people from the east comfortably across and back to activities that happen in Prospect Road. And I think that was one of the core things that we wanted to actually achieve out of the process, and I don't think we've quite landed that. Also, I think anytime we put stuff out to consultation, we should be happy. It's not just going out there and seeing, you know, kind of seeing if people want to poke a stick at it or not. We should be happy if they go, yes, we want to do that. And I'm not happy to endorse Galway Avenue down to 40 kilometres an hour for many, many reasons. If not basically that we need to have differentiation between the roads in the area, and one of the differentiations of Galway Avenue is that it being 50 will keep people out of the 40 kilometre hour streets. So I'm not happy to endorse that, and thus I'm not happy to put it out to consultation. The other reason I really won't be endorsing this tonight is I think we've just had an entire confidential workshop on another project that we're doing, and we're finding it heavy going, the consultation process and the hours that we're spending as elected members and staff, and also the impost that we're putting onto our residents that are becoming increasingly involved in a process. And I think just putting out another level of consultation out to residents, I think, is something that we don't need to do. There is no items in this ITP that are high need. There's no, there was no column on the right-hand side that gave anything priority, and it's all very much a lot of the times it's just a bit of a wish list, and maybe we'll do this. I don't think that anything on here and the consultation process that surrounds it are a priority, and I think we could basically put this in a little park somewhere while we do the bigger things that we're doing, and let the residents and us, you know, not take on too many things. I do believe that we're very much in danger of taking on too much. So I'm happy. Everyone's got their own opinion, and if people endorse this, I truly understand why, but I won't be at this point.
I've also got a few issues with this as well. I just felt, you know, we went into a great discussion with you know, the consultant, and I just, there's so much I saw where we felt we had to change things, but those things were not where I was hearing the complaints from, coming from the community. For example, Galway Avenue. I don't know. Has anyone else have we had complaints that the traffic there goes too fast? It's good visibility. It's just it's a wide road. You compare so many places in Adelaide to roads like that. The speed limit's 50. In some cases, it's 60. I'm also not too happy with the speed limit dropping where Blackfriars is. We've got a single lane. It's 50. When it's busy, traffic naturally just slows down. It's single lane. There are so many locations that have a school and childcare centre. I mean, there was just no good reason given why you'd need to drop to 40. There's one location I just went to yesterday, Golden Grove. You've got, I think it's Gleeson College, Golden Grove with high school with 1,800 students. I think you've got Padare, you've got shopping centre on the other side of the road. It is so busy, and two roads, intersection and two roads, crossing each other. The speed limit's 60. You just have traffic lights where people cross. When people are aware of traffic there, and I don't think 50 kilometres on the southern side of Prospect Road is a risk. I mean, we can always do things to improve safety, but I think it's overkill dropping to 40. We could extend to Milner Street. A 40 zone could go to Milner. That captures the new Harrington development. But it's just so many things I saw in the ITP. Some good things there, but again, like Councillor Standen said, they're things that are nice to have, and we'll endeavour to have them one day, but they're just not critical. And I think it's those. I think it captures too many feel-good things, and it actually delves into finding issues where there's not an issue there, and particularly with the speed limits. I think that is, I don't think I can support this.
So you brought up a question about why certain things have been recommended and the speed change. Can I answer that, and then I'll just throw it over to you? We had the first phase of the consultation, so any of the recommendations in this would be coming from the public and from us. So this has been brought up, and that's why it's been included. So it's obviously like some resident or one of us has brought it up, and that's why it's
just
included.
I did ask the consultant in the ITP workshop why the reason, and I was referring to Galway Avenue, why the reason for a drop in speed, and the only explanation I got was, a couple, it's less confusing for people coming from a 4 going to 5, but in my opinion, it's pretty obvious you're going to a main road and, more substantial road. I didn't think that was a good enough reason. It wasn't anything too concrete or concerning with the problem there. And the other was it's less confusing when all speed limits are the same, and to me that just did not wash at all. Yeah.
Yes, look, I think it behoves us to put all the fantastic information that the consultant, our staff, they did a wonderful job on this. And I said before at the workshop, we can have all our own opinions about things, right? But it's up to us to put this information out and test it as part of a consultation, right? If it comes back then that, there's quite a sway one way, well then that's then that we as leaders then start to take on board those things. So I'm very keen to get it out. There's a lot of really, as I said, fantastic information out there. If it's not perfect, these things never are, right? But it's not up to us and what our opinion is. It's putting it out there and finding out and testing things and testing that. So I'd like to get it out there.
I concur with Councillor Barnett. I agree. Enormous work has gone into this report. Thank you, Kiki. Thank you to the team who's given us all this information. I'm really excited to see it out there. Councillor Barnett said, let's get it tested our community will tell us what's good, what's not, and if they want things to be in a, they'll let us know. I think we're very, we're quite transparent, and so let's put this out there, and whatever comes back, we'll look at it, we'll digest that information, and then we'll go on with the next phase. But I support this, and I look forward to seeing what the community will say, and I know that they will tell us what they think.
Comment and question from me, and I wholly and solely agree with Councillor Nguyen and Barnett in the fact that public consultation is exactly what this is for. I think the documentation that you guys have done is amazing. You've done a fantastic job on this. And exactly what we're trying to do is get the public feedback on findings of the report, which is exactly what we need. My question is actually, I thought I was going to be the lone wolf, but in support of Councillor Standen here, is I don't want to see community burnout. We've just come off 6 weeks of consultation for the PLP. We've got this, then we're going to have public consultation on the budget. My concern is burnout, and my question is what effects will we have if we just delay this, although we've got the documentation now, delay the rollout of the consultation by 3 to 4 months.
I'll ask Ms Taylor to take this one. Ms Taylor?
I think through the chair, I think the first thing is my team will go, whew. But no, look, the timeframes are tight. We have tailored our consultation to be across, sorry, I did just put a chocolate from over. We have designed the consultations to be in a different variety of ways as well. We have picked up on the success of the PLP through the online engaging maps, so we will be doing that with the ITP as well. That is also why we are, I guess, consulting using the fact sheets rather than a whole document. Plus the budget we're looking at some different language in a different way to actually consult with the budget. I'm flipping that a little bit. I know feedback from elected members has always been change it up a little bit. We're changing up the language. So I do feel like the community will still engage with this. They're very passionate about these spaces. So I feel like you will get the engagement that you're after and the value and the real constructive feedback and take a deeper dive into the spaces and give you that feedback that you're after. I feel that the ITP particularly, people will look at the areas that completely affect them more so than a holistic kind of approach. So we are cognizant of community burnout. I'm also cognizant of my team burning out, but I do feel that the way that we've structured it, we will still be okay. But if council's decision, and if you did decide to delay it, 100% we can support that as well, and we'll pivot and we'll look at doing something different a little bit later on.
So my question was, what would be the effects if we did put forward a variation and actually ask for it to be rolled out in the 1st of July?
That through the chair, that would be okay with us. We can pivot. As in, is that what you're affecting of the team, or you're affecting of what's for the community?
How would we? What's your estimation of how the public would be? Do you think they'd be more open to something in 3 or 4 months because they would have had a few weeks break, and your team obviously unrolling those things?
I don't think it'll make too much difference. I think you'll still get the engagement. I don't think there will be a fatigue because it's a different topic, different areas. We sort of spoke about with PLP, you're getting a lot of the, I guess, holistic community, but a lot of the close-knit community in that space. I think you'll find the ITP, people will engage on what will affect them. So you'll actually get a much broader input. So those who are not really, I guess, writing the copious amounts of feedback for PLP will then jump on board the ITP train.
Maybe Mr. Delena, do you have anything to add to that?
From our perspective, there's no grant funding aside aligned with this. It really is trying to progress this in a manner that we can get finalised as close to the frontier as possible. We would still be progressing the actual background document that goes around the actions, and so that we wouldn't be losing. Effectively, whilst we might be losing a couple of months, effectively now, some of that time will be used to good advantage in terms of preparing the broader document that has to go around the actions, the vision, the themes, and the strategies and the actions that we've developed. So it really is just timing. If it's September or August that we sign this off on, it means that we just can't start progressing maybe some of the actions that we've got in the budget bid as a tranche, stage 1, deliverables, because I'd really like the council to endorse the ITP before I start progressing some of the actions. So it does have a flow-on effect, but it's, as long as the council's accepting that we might have some delay in A, signing it off, and B, delivering the first tranche of deliverables, well then I'm comfortable with it.
Just from the chair, this is a very exciting piece of document work. I'm really excited to have this out to the public. It involves everyone. So, like Farley has mentioned, the PLP kind of targets specific people, but I think the ITP would involve the whole community. And I would really like to see this one out, so that we can start getting some feedback and moving the process along and coming closer to some actions in the future. So I would circle back to Councillor Drew to sum up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have to apologise, I've misled the chamber. I was reviewing my notes. It was actually the 28th of November 2017 that I first moved the motion. So my children are actually 6, not 9. And ironically, on that agenda, we had deputations from Clinton Devendish and Martin Richards about the Broadview Tennis Club. So there you go. How it all comes full circle, doesn't it? So just to go back to my other notes, now I've done that. I'm a little surprised with the hesitation to go for consultation, because I can guarantee if we try and find the perfect time, it will never exist. It will never exist, because we've got budget coming up, we're going to be talking about ITP again. There will always be a reason not to do something rather than do something. And I probably would just, it's not a question, but it's a rhetorical question about if staff didn't really want it to go out to consultation now, why bring it to us tonight? Why not bring it to us in a month or 2 months? So my view is it's with us tonight and we should make that decision. We don't know what people think, so to Councillor Hollett's perspective, we don't know what people think. That's the whole idea of doing the consultation. We want to understand whether they want Galway Avenue to be 40 kilometres or 60 kilometres or 50 or whatever, and I think that's the whole purpose of it. Going to the issue about there's no good reason to drop to 40, that was probably at the very heart of my motion back in 2017, which also brought in the 40 kilometre an hour zone. And an interesting stat from the Department of Infrastructure and Transport here in South Australia is a reduction of 5 kilometres an hour in average travel speed reduces urban crashes by about 25%. So if you need a reason to reduce speed on our residential streets, and Galway is residential, there's lots of on Galway and lots of families that live there, I'd say that's a pretty good reason. We're not experts, that's why we've had the work done by experts, and they've presented to us some options. I don't agree with all of them, but I don't want to, we had this conversation last week, at the workshop. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but I agree with them all going out to community. And so they will tell us what they think and we can make up our mind from that. The issue about consultation, I think consultation is a good process, and those who want to engage in this will engage, and to the Director's point earlier, they'll engage in the bits that they want to engage in. So if you've got an avid walker, they're probably not going to care so much about parking if they don't own a car. If someone drives everywhere, they're probably going to be less interested in walking their dog or the walking issue. So I think we should be open to that and say, let people self-select in. And if we get the feedback back that, hey, this is all too much, you know what, we can extend it by a month or two. Like, nothing's impossible. So look, I would really support and encourage all the councillors around the table to support it as well. It's a long piece of work. It will result in us having a budget bid that we're not quite sure what we're going to do with, and ultimately any delay, like anything we do, is going to delay the outcome at the other end. So I don't think it's feasible to say we can delay it by 3 or 4 months. It's not going to have an impact. It will have an impact on doing things in our community, whether it's about walking, whether it's about parking, whether it's about driving. So I'm, you all know I'm very passionate about this. I've lived this for the last, I don't know, so many years, 9 years, not quite that long, and I'm really excited about getting out to community and see what they think. So I certainly commend it to everyone, and I hope it gets up.
Put this to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Division.
Oh, I wanted to do it. You got it before me.
We stand.
All the yeses. All the yeses.
Yes, that's standing. So.
Local Government Association, the National General Assembly. The recommendations on page 376. I may suspend the meeting procedures with all those.
Conflict.
Sorry, do I need to lead?
Potentials.
Do we
I
suspend the
don't know
meeting first?
potential, an indication, potential conflict of interest.
So through the mayor, is it material, or is it is it pecuniary? Is it going to cook? Like, is there money in this for you, or is it simply just a what's the nature of the interest?
Just a general
Well, then it's up to you whether you stay and vote. It's a question really.
I'll stay.
It's from training matters, so.
I suggest we suspend the meeting for 5 minutes. Just to discuss legal.
So,
Suspend the meeting procedures for 5 minutes.
Joe,
That's enough.
Oh,
Alright, do we have anyone that would like to put their hand up to go? Councillor Nguyen? Is anyone else interested?
So, Madam Deputy Mayor, I have been informed by the Mayor that he will be attending, so that if that changes anyone's position or anything, he's made clear that he would like to attend.
No one else? Okay, we'll just go back into proceed, meeting procedure. Councillor Tweed Wynn. And then put Councillor Tweed Wynn in as the deputy delegate as well. Alright, so do I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Barnett? Would you like to speak to it? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Standen? Would you like to speak to it? Any further discussion? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Will you try to take some time off, Councillor Nguyen, from your work? Alright, so we have 10.5, appointment of interim member to audit and risk committee. The recommendations are on page 380. Do we have a mover?
yes.
Councillor Barnett?
Yes, I think due process has been followed, and so we'll move to pass the 2 recommendations.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Green, would you like to speak to it? Do we go back to Councillor to sum up?
No.
All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11, reports for information. We have 2. Does anyone want to call out either 1 or 2? Alright, so we'll resolve this on the block. Do I have a mover? Councillor Standen? And seconder, Councillor Root. So did you move to be spoken? Okay, so all those in favour? Thank you, carried unanimously. Item 12, general business. And then items 12.1, we have the council member reports and briefings. We've received it from Councillor Barnett, Councillor Nelson, and myself. Does anyone want to speak to it? Oh, Councillor Tobacco?
Sorry, I thought I'd sent mine through as well, but that's okay.
Alright, so items 12.2, motions on notice, 12.2.1 from Councillor Standen, the Howard and Balfour intersection upgrade decision. Would you like to move this one, Councillor Standen?
I will move it. And do I speak to it at this point? It's really simple. After all these years of debate about what to do with the intersection at Howard and Balfour and what treatment we put in there, the 1 month that it comes to council for decision, I will be, not for any fault of my own, overseas. And selfishly, I would like to be part of that discussion, but also as the ward councillor and people that, you know, as someone who's been telling the people of the area that we will do something, I'd really like to be part of the final decision, and I seek your absolute indulgence to move the item on from April to May. I did ask informally whether that could be done, and I was reliably informed that it's probably not the best way to go about it. So I'm asking in a formal manner, and I put the motion towards you.
Do we have a seconder?
I second this one. I fully support a deferral too. I think Councillor Standen is very involved with his local residents, and he's had many discussions over this and other things as well. And I think it is important for him and for the residents to have him here on that particular night. So I urge others to also support a deferral. I don't see it doesn't affect our timelines or anything, does it? That's a question. It's not an issue.
Delay our timeline.
Oh,
Sorry.
So through you, Deputy Mayor, the CEO comment addresses, all it's going to do is delay the project a month. Because the only reason I can't just make this decision is, of course, this could be misused, and if I do it once, it becomes a precedent. So that's the only reason I asked Council to lodge a motion here. I know it feels like a painful waste of time, and can't I just do it? If I do it now, I have to do it every time, and members, that could get me into trouble. So.
I understand, yes, but he has been quite involved in this one.
Indeed.
He's put so much in, so
very sympathetic to the question, but it's a matter for the change.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I thank Councillor Stanton for the motion, and I very much thank the CEO for the stance on it, because I'm very much a believer in process, and we can't just change things because people aren't there. You know, I just think, and that's for all of us, you know, and sometimes we can't because we do have other lives, and we, you know, holiday with our families, and we get sick, and so, you know, people are away, but council moves on, and that's why we have 9 elected members instead of 3. So though I understand the intent of this motion, I will be supporting it, because I guess same thing, I try to be there when I can, but I'll with council business, which is all our rate base, to suit myself. But I understand Mark's passion for this project and his involvement and his contribution to the discussion. So it's just unfortunate timing. I won't miss it.
Councillor Nelson?
Yeah, look, I'm kind of the same. I'm morally torn on this one, but I fully understand Councillor Standen's passion and everything else for this project. But I thought long and hard about this over the weekend, and it's just, you know, I think it sets a bad precedent. I think it allows members to, you know, potentially miss meetings for certain reasons, or to shop votes for certain projects. And as much as I really understand Councillor Standen's passion for this project, I've missed a meeting in the past where I wanted to be here for certain things, and I just knew it just had to pass. So I can't support it because I think it sets a bad precedent.
I'm surprised Councillor Standen wants to be here to see it rescinded. But anyway, that aside, look, I'm not quite agnostic on this, but I think I'm probably erring on the side of Councillor Tobacco and Nelson as well. That there is a process, and I have missed things that sometimes I've been the swing vote for as well, and it's really unfortunate. But for me, it is the precedent that it creates that this would allow any of us to come for any future meeting to say, I can't make a particular one, I'm potentially a swing vote for this, can you defer it? It's open to Councillor Standen, of course, to try and seek a pair in some way. I'm not sure how that works in council, even if it's possible, but unless in his summing up he can absolutely convince me that I should support it, I probably can't, purely on a process issue. I like Councillor Standen, I consider him a friend, I like what he stands for, I like his thinking in the chamber, but I go back to what I say around, you know, doing policy on the fly, doing budgets on the fly, although I might excuse myself in that one in the next motion, and you know, doing this sort of thing. I am a bit concerned about it. So, Mark, give me your best shot in summing up.
Yeah. Yes, certainly nothing personal at all, but as has been explained, there are most probably many of us who have for some reason or other, illness or being away, out of the state or even the country, and it's just unfortunate the way it is, I guess in over 33 years I've been passionate about quite a few things, but I've never asked council to put something off because I haven't been able to be here through illness or being overseas. So I think it's just, what comes. We know it's the fourth Friday of the month, so Tuesday. God, I think I was trying to wish that one forward.
The Friday before.
Maybe. Anyway, so yeah, and also I just take note that at the start the CEO comment says it will result in some challenges in rearranging our capital works and procurement planning across the financial year transition. So, I think if it didn't have a few things that didn't stack up, maybe, but so I'm sorry about that. But,
I'll just comment about, obviously it's not a personal thing, it's a process, and I feel that as much as I want to say yes, but just in policies and processes, we have to make sure that we're not setting a precedent for next time. So I won't be supporting this.
All right, I'll bring it back to Councillor Stanley.
Right, the summing up, the changing of everyone's minds. Look, I understand, I get it. It was a matter of having to go through the process and asking. And it's because I was a Grinch on the other thing, I get it. Look, I truly thank you all, and I expect you to leave it on the table on the night.
We can't now.
You might be. Look, thank you. You vote with your heads and your hearts. You do what you do, and there's no hard feelings.
Put that to the vote. All those in favour?
oh, sorry. What?
And then all those against?
Division.
Division.
No, cancel the division. I don't need it.
Motion lost.
Motion lost.
Sorry.
It's all right. I got my motion practicing.
Alright, next on the agenda we have notion on the additional after hours parking and traffic management support by Councillor De Backer. Would you like to bring this motion, Councillor De Backer?
Yes. So I'll read it out. It's been a long time since I've moved a motion. So I'd like to move to approve an increased service level in relation to parking enforcement commencing 1st July 2025, such that active patrols are undertaken in strategic locations in accordance with the following additional service hours. Friday night 6 till 9 p.m, Saturday 10 a.m. to 2 p.m, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m, and Sunday 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Allocates an additional $70,000 into the next budget and recurrent salary to fund the increased service level. Request staff to present a report to council as part of the budget review 2, identifying additional income received from expiations issued during the period specified in part 1 of this motion. Request that the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate engage with neighbouring councils and/or through regional partners, including Eastern Regional Alliance of Councils and the Local Government Association, to seek shared efficiencies in delivering parking enforcement services outside of ordinary business hours. So I know there's a lot of commentary around this. It's like, this wasn't supported in budget discussions and service levels. I guess what we're finding is we've got a service level that basically exists with a contractor, which is a reactive. What this seeks is to have a proactive response, and we've had recent events in and around Milner Street. We've had recent events in and around the fairs, King Street, events at the Oval. We're a community that likes to gather and do things on weekends and evenings, which is great, but we can't just rely on after hours number to come and, nab someone who's double parked or on a yellow line or that kind of thing, because people know they can get away with it because things aren't enforced. And it's not all about enforcement, it's also about education. So certainly it's after hours parking concerns are a big, and you can see by the figures, it's actually trending upwards. And at the moment, I just don't have an answer. And I think if we do a proactive approach, it matches the changes to our demographic. So we have been doing city building over the last arguably 5, 10, 15 years. And it was all about activation, activation, activation. So we've got activation on Churchill Road, activation on Prospect Road. We've got densification, so we've got a changing in our profile. So we've got more density of dwellings, and with that comes arguably, good things with activation coffee shops, but bad things, which is car parking and poor behaviour after hours. So the reason I'm bringing this to you is yes, we want to increase this service level, and this commits us to doing that. And you can say, well, why didn't this come in as a budget level discussion? Look, I've certainly tried and lobbied, but after some recent events, and I'm sure you've all been included in the emails, I think it's just about time that we make a commitment to have this service. The other thing to be mindful of, we take, $500,000, $600,000 of fines from our residents, which I think is an exorbitant amount, but we don't service on the weekends. So, I think we need to commit to doing some service on the weekends, and in part it does fund itself, so that's the reason for the report to come back to council to look at where this is and actually are we getting better behaviours. Illegal U-turns, often we see delivery drivers, double parking, and that also helps our businesses as well because it helps turn over traffic and manage traffic after hours. So I'd encourage you to consider it. I realise that there are different views around the table. I'd be open to amendments, but open to the discussion.
Second to this one.
Well,
Thanks,
what you
Councillor
can
Bennett.
do.
I was just going to get on the
Yes, those are.
Do you want to do it?
Yes.
You do it.
Yeah, so look, I think there's a lot in here that I would like to actually explore. It's, I guess, just, it's a shame, I guess, that we didn't have it before, but that's, that's, we've got this before us now, because I know that certainly my West Ward, and particularly around Prospect Road Village on West Ward side, there are certainly quite a few complaints and some pretty consistent ones that come because of unable to reach the out-of-hours number when it's really needed, when you can't get into your own sort of car park and things like that, whatever. So I'm going to second it to get it on the floor and to be able to discuss it, and hopefully that if nothing else comes out of it, but part 3, I think, request staff to present a report to council as part of the budget review too. So for identifying additional income from expiation and right, yeah. So anyway, I won't go any further than that.
Look, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with this one as well because I think the intent is correct. I think the process is not, it would have been better to be a month earlier. I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking out loud here about if an amendment did something like in item 1, consider approving an increase, and item 2, considering allocating an increase, and then referring it to the April council meeting as part of the budget conversation, which is kind of a little bit of the CEO's comment in option 1, but not actually committing to it until we have a debate about it at council. Whether that would be, whether the move would be open to something like that, or whether it's actually useful from an administration point of view. I think it's the right thing to do. I've just got some questions about things like our current out-of-hours service. How does this differ? I hear about the proactivity, but in terms of we're paying for an out-of-hours service, so is that cost? Is it a 1 for $1, or is it going to cost us $2 for every $1 paying for the after-hours phone service? Do we actually have people that do come out after hours? I know the Greek Festival had a physical person come out. I wasn't sure if that was hours or a contractor. So there are all those sort of things, which is probably not for now, but I'd be interested in the context of the budget debate to have. So I'm just thinking out loud whether something like that would work. Maybe I'll ask those questions to the CEO first, and if not, I'm happy just to stop.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, honestly, members, if you're considering doing this, the earlier you let us know, the better. Having the debate on the floor of council next month would be more challenging. If we could workshop it ahead of time, get a very clear idea from members where you want to go with this, maybe. The challenge with that will be finding a time between now and then to workshop it again. I think there's, again, the process is the challenge here. It's the timing. It's a commitment of recurrent funds permanently. So my expectation would be that members would have some interest in answering a range of those questions, which of course we haven't been able to do in the CEO comment. And I think it would be a challenge even if I asked Mr McCluskey to come up now and start trying to pitch you, some ideas on how this might look. But members, frankly, if you are minded to consider this as an option, I would prefer it to be tonight, even if I do have to drag Mr McCluskey up with his director's approval to try and answer some of those questions, but they won't potentially be that well researched. We might need to take some stuff away on notice, and you'd still be, I guess, being invited to make a decision tonight on information that might be less than perfect, and certainly not in considering alternative options for the expenditure of that $70,000 in recurrent funding. There's also another factor here that sort of hasn't really, it's alluded to certainly in the motion, that is that if we hire another person to do this, or we get some sort of casual service or a consultancy to do this work for us, there'll clearly be some revenue attached to it. There is a net cost therefore to consider, and that would benefit from some business case analysis, which again I'm not certain Mr McCluskey's done to a great degree of detail, although maybe he's more ready for that discussion than not. It really is a question of the appetite of members to workshop this on the floor tonight. I'd prefer to do that if you're interested than to wait until next month. Frankly, members, if you're not interested and would like to delay this until either the next budget process or some future time, then let's do that. But if members are minded to do this now as part of this budget and support Councillor De Backer's approach, I would frankly prefer to try and nut it out tonight. Might take a while. That would be a preferred option.
Okay, I'll take an alternative approach. So I'm supportive of it in principle. I think the idea is good. I just got so many questions about it. I don't think they're going to be answered tonight for me to make an informed decision. So two options. One is, can we please take it in parts in terms of when we vote for it, Deputy Mayor, just because reading the CEO's comments, particularly around item 4, I think I'd rather probably not support that if it's not feasible or timely. I think for recommendation 3, what I'm saying is I support it. It should go in the budget. I'm happy to debate as part of the budget in the second, but take it into the budget as it is with the warts and all. That would mean that recommendation 3 is a bit redundant. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. So to give you a guide, CEO, I'm supportive of it. However, I'm also supportive of saying let's workshop it. So that was my last comment will be, is there opportunity in the next 2 weeks of workshops for us to add on 30 minutes to actually have the conversation, have someone come and say, here are the pros and cons, or here are the ons and offs, and here's the revenue, here's the net costs. This is what we're already paying for an after-hour service. This would be supplemented by this or replaced by it, whatever it might be. Is there an option to do that? So maybe ask those questions.
Through Deputy Mayor, possibly. And a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I would not have said that. Members are aware of our future workshop schedule, but members of my PDR, of which you're one, there's a couple here tonight, also aware of the fact that asset management has been keeping Mr. Delena, myself and our staff awake at night, and it's looking like one of those risks may be materialising. 2 of those workshops are scheduled in April. It's possible we could repurpose one to this. It's a commitment of recurrent expenditure. It might give us a chance to do some preparation work around that. It would be an opportunistic use of that day if it were to come up. However, having said that, Mr. Delena and I have not discussed this yet. Mr. Delena?
We won't be holding asset management workshops in April, but they'll be shortly afterwards. That's done in May.
So we've been trying, members, in that regard. This is why it's important to juggle some alternative workshops that we already have scheduled in May and June into those April dates, one of which is one of Ms Taylor's workshops, and I know she was burning hell and leather to try and get it ready, but we may have an opening, so it is possible.
Well, I'll test an amendment that the matter gets referred to a workshop.
You didn't second it, so yes, you can. So
How would you like to amend it?
it's a separate amendment.
Yeah, so maybe as a new recommendation 5, this, I'm not sure how to do it administratively, but the intent is that we refer this to a future workshop prior to the budget.
So Madam Deputy Mayor, an approach here might be for Council to move an amendment that says that this matter be deferred to a workshop at the earliest opportunity, full stop, and that then you seek a second. The Council can speak to that and then look for a seconder. That then gets debated. If it's supported, then it becomes the motion. If it's not supported, it reverts back to Council to back the motion.
So, Councillor Group, are you making an amendment?
Yeah, so request that this matter be referred to workshop to be held at the earliest convenience, might just say prior to the April council meeting, because that's kind of the crunch point.
Prior to the April Council meeting, but
can I just check, maybe through the Deputy Mayor to the CEO, this is not a variation?
it's completely new.
Okay, right. That's
I mean, look, it's possible that the mover and seconder could accept it as variation. It would be a fairly significant one, but
Yeah. No, that's right. No,
simpler.
Well, I was going the simple option. It's getting late. So I was going the simple option. But if not, maybe just do it as a minute.
So now we're looking for a seconder. Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I do note that obviously this is addressed as part of the ITP now in P6, so this exact scenario is being addressed as part of the public consultation, hence the reason that this option I think is a very good one to request a workshop. I've actually got that to myself, so Councillor Brett got in ahead of me, which is good. And it's only because there's currently insufficient information. We just don't have enough information there. I know we've got some nice graphs there to sort of show there's 129 parking call-outs in 2024 financial year. But the minimal data provided just works out to be about 2 per week. But was it 2 per week or was it 40 for one event? What location were they in? What nights were they? What hours were they? There's obviously a graph there that just doesn't have sufficient information to spend $70,000. So I think by requesting a workshop on this prior to the next council meeting is an excellent move.
Any further debate?
I'm happy to support this as well. I understand Councillor De Becker's intent. Being proactive with our events, and increasingly we are having quite a lot more after hours weekend events. So I understand that having a strategy to deal with the traffic is a great thing. However, I think we're to have a discussion about to get some more information about exactly the causes of it. I think we need to have a discussion and a workshop prior to the meeting to knock that all out. And also we've got other competing projects as well, and so to make a decision of allocating that 70,000 without looking at all the effects of the other projects. I feel like I want to have the discussion and talk about the impacts of that, but definitely a lot of information is missing, so I support the amendment.
Have you taken to the vote?
Can I just step in there for a moment? Right now we've got 2 items to my understanding is, Councillor Groot, you were really wanting to just vote on item 5 as the amendment.
Good point, yeah.
So we're pleased for below the line there, for the one moved by Mark and seconded by Jason, that's an amendment. If we could delete 1, 2, 3 and 4 and leave 5. that become the amendment, which is what we're now voting
Yeah,
on.
right. So the new amended version.
Sorry, just
Yeah, I think Mark's about to ask the same thing. Mark Groot always says that we should be able to read this in 10 years' time and see what make sense of it and put it in context. That doesn't have any. It doesn't have any context to this matter.
So
Okay.
above, Gwen, if you may, where it says move, Councillor Mark Groot, if you can space that down and type in amendment.
I've learned nothing if not that.
and then delete
And
number,
divisions.
delete point 5 and just make that one sentence. That council requested this matter be referred. So you delete the colon as well into one sentence. Perfect. This is what's being voted on, members. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. Maybe April 2025. Council meeting.
Oh
Yes, please.
I meant 27. Share my play.
No, when your children go.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Alright, so we're putting the amended motion onto the vote. So all those in favour? Carried unanimously.
Motion.
So the amended becomes the motion.
Does anybody want to debate?
Is there any further debate? Motion is carried.
No, it's back to Councillor Groot to sum up.
Okay, another 5 minutes. I'm so sorry, Councillor Becker. I've usurped your motion totally, which is why I was trying to make it a variation rather than an amendment. But look, I think this is a good outcome. I think it preserves process, and I think with this information we need to make a decision, which I think hopefully will address the issues that Councillor Becker's raised. So.
So
Vote on the motion.
Okay.
Now the motion.
So now we're voting on the motion. So all those in favour?
Same thing.
Carried unanimously. So the motion is carried. So
Don't know whether it'll be next week or the week after, members. We need to see what we can do.
and lastly, we have 12.2.3, motion, notice of motion by Mayor Matt Larwood, PLP additional consultation session. So do we have a mover for this, Councillor Birch?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move this on behalf of the Mayor, and not inconsistent with anything I've said either publicly or privately to people in terms of our process. I do support something for the people of Kintore. I think when the Mayor talks about adjacent streets, he's referring to Wilcox and Flora as well, so I'm not sure if we need to make that clear in the motion. We don't need to make it clear, no, we'll leave it out. Sorry?
I said we know what you're talking
Okay, great. So, so that's certainly what I'm moving is more than just Kintore Avenue. I think it's useful. I think the proposal put by the Mayor is a very informal gathering, I think possibly at Prospect Oval, where councillors and members of the public can come and have those conversations. This is not dissimilar to a motion that we moved or we passed last year, which hasn't actually been enacted, which is on me, around having those informal catch-ups with residents. So this will prompt us to also do that from a perspective much broader than the PLP. Look, I think this is useful. I would rather be criticised by having too much consultation than not enough, and I think there's clearly enough interest in the community to hear or to want to be heard directly by elected members in this regard. So I think it's beholden on us to do that. I don't think it's going to slip the project particularly significantly, and I would hope, though, that this would happen in the sort of coming 2 to 3 weeks. It's a bit unclear as to who's actually going to manage this, apart from some assistance from administration in terms of publicity. I think the Mayor was quite keen to then be quite heavily involved with running that session himself. So I commend the motion. I think it's a good idea, and on behalf of the Mayor, yes, it's a support around the table.
Have a seconder motion.
Yeah, I'll second it, and I concur with some of the points that Councillor Briggs made. I think, on reflection, we just need to listen to people, and we have, but certainly when the Mayor says that we need a consultation session, I certainly respect that, and he is the spokesperson for the council, so I hope that this motion encourage other elected members to do so.
Discussion. Back to Councillor Birch to sum up.
What Councillor De Backer said.
Alright, we'll put this to the vote. So all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Alright, so 12.3 questions with notice. We do have one. Clarification of information from January 2025 Council meeting. Item 10.3, PLP option endorsement for community consultation, asked by Councillor De Backer, and we have the questions and the answers on the screen.
Has that been circulated? That will be published in the minutes, members.
Item 12.4, urgent motions without notice. Do we have 12.5, late reports? We have nil. So we're moving